Hello!
Hello, how are
How are
you?
you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm hanging in there.
Hanging in there. Thank you so much for coming on today. I am
Yeah.
thrilled to have you here. I genuinely am.
I'm pumped. No, this is great. I would have loved to be there live and engage and do all that. Obviously, I much prefer that, but there was just no way this coming week to make
And
that work.
what's amazing is I've already announced to our audience that we have recorded this, so we're free and easy and being able to
Perfect.
chat openly. But I will be asking them questions because I want them to be engaged to really understand who you are. But before we kind of go into that, my most exciting question is, how is baby Milo?
He's great. He just had his 6 month checkup, so he had like 4 shots, so he's been off for a day or two. But
Oh,
other, but really just a little extra whiny and fussy. But other than that, yeah, he's great. He's a little grown up. It's it's
uh,
hysterical.
I have
you
to
know.
say, if anybody is connecting with Brian on Facebook, you will see the most cutest little guy. And he so loves you playing the guitar. He's like chilled out, loving it.
He
His
has a lot of
his
fun.
smile.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Brian Miller. We connected through a networking event, essentially. Um, but you kind of really opened my heart with the way that you were incredibly generous in this event that we were both part of. And not only just generous, but you kind of went the extra mile, and it opened my eyes, it opened my heart, and I thought I need to connect with this guy and find out a little bit more about you. And lo and behold, what is your speciality but human connection? Of course it is. So kind of take us back, because the concept is wounds to wisdom to wealth. How we, particularly as youngsters, have these insecurities, these possible adversities, or things that are in our way. And we can either kind of hold them in a victimhood stance, or we can find a way to adapt, to survive, and even thrive through that wound. And you did that, and you've done that very, very well. So I'd love you to kind of take us back and give us an idea about how the magic began.
Well, I never know exactly where to start or how deep to go in these kinds of stories. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, and you can decide where to take it up from there.
Yeah.
I had a debilitating social anxiety as a child, and that is not to say that I have a sob story. I don't. I'm from a reasonably well off upper middle class family. I'm a white male in America, so I don't have a sob story, but I did really struggle. I was bullied and kind of friendless most of my childhood, and kind of like right out of a Disney Channel original movie in middle school. I had the books knocked out of my hands, and four eyes was a legitimate insult when I was a kid. Of course, now kids wear glasses who don't need it because it's fashionable, but it was a completely, which is a little insulting, but I digress. But I really I had parents who were divorced, which again, that's a thing that nobody, like today, it's like, yeah, 50% of parents are divorced, but that was not the case. I was always the only child in any given class or room who had divorced parents. So I was kind of ripe for being picked on. I was shy, I was quiet, and it was difficult for a long time. And then at some point, I think it was ninth grade, I'm in high school, have no friends still. I'm sitting at a cafeteria table with some other kids who I'm not friends with. They're just sitting at the same table I am, kind of a group of outcasts all sitting alone at the same table. And I wanted to show them a card trick because all my life I'd been interested in magic. I'd been obsessed with magic because my dad loved magic, my grandfather loved magic. I was inundated with magic and magicians all my life, but I had never actually shown a trick to anybody. And I mean to anybody. And if you don't know anything about magic or don't know much about it, this'll blow your mind. Magic is, as far as I can tell, the only art form you cannot do for your own enjoyment. Right. And what I mean by that is, right, you see this guitar, I got guitars lining the walls in the studio here. I can play guitar by myself, for hours on end. Nobody will ever hear it. And I can fully enjoy that experience. I can draw, whether I'm good or bad doesn't matter. Right, there's a million things that you can do in art. You can write just for yourself and get enjoyment and get benefit from that. But magic is built on secrets. And so because you have to not know the secret in order to experience the magic, you can't do magic for your own enjoyment. You can't fool yourself. I mean, I've tried.
Gosh, repeat that again. That is amazing. That is amazing. Get this down if you are in this now. Go on.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. So which part? I mean, magic you can't do for you can't do for your own enjoyment.
Yeah, but you need to know the secret. You don't need to know.
That's right. You right. That's right. In order for you to experience magic, you have to not know the secret. And this is what later in life became the key to the transition I made into this career. Right. This is where it came from. I did not realize that when I was a kid.
In order to experience the magic, you need to not know the secret.
Right.
That's a little bit controversial for my audience. Most of them have read The Secret.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. Different secret. Yeah. No. So, but the truth is, in order to create an experience of magic, and by magic as a magician, I mean inspire somebody, move them to wonder, to awe. If I'm trying to do this for another magician who knows all the same things I do, I can't move them to that place. I can entertain them. I can make them laugh, but I can't move them to that place because they know the same thing I do. And later in life, and I'm sure we'll get into that, that is the key insight that became the core of what I do as a human connection specialist, which is when we talk about conversational magic, what I do now and work with people on, you don't connect with people in spite of their differences. You connect with people because of their differences.
Can we all just note that down? Another fantastic quote from Brian.
Yeah. We're off to a good start. So that's what happened, is that magic in that moment. I went to show a card trick to these kids at the table. For some reason, this particular trick, I was just so excited about it. My desire to share that magic with somebody else, and I'll never know why, it just snapped me out of the social anxiety. I was shaking. I mean, it wasn't like cured in an instant, but I did the trick. Kids' jaws dropped. They freaked out. They started going, "Hey, come over here. You guys see it. You guys see it." And in an instant, I was popular, right? I became the magic kid. And through years of starting to do magic and doing it for other people and starting to get paid when I was like 16 doing magic at local gigs, I developed the tools of self-confidence. I developed the ability to command a room. I developed the ability to connect with people. And that was the start of magic saved my life. It completely transformed my life in many, many ways.
It's so amazing. Like, you can see that kid in the cafeteria. You can see him. We've all experienced little moments of that, maybe not in our own life, but we've seen it happen with other kids where they've gone from somebody completely either unknown or unliked, and something's come out of them that is, and in your case, literally magic. That is so beautiful. So bring us further then, kind of into, like, as you grew in confidence and started, kind of like you say, getting paid for doing magic and learning how to, I suppose, entertain with awe and wonder without giving away the secret, drawing people in.
Yeah, so in the spirit of the topic of kind of wounds to wisdom, so that wasn't the end. And in a Hollywood story, maybe that would be the end, but that wasn't. What happened is I had this real split happen, kind of my personal identity split. And on one hand, when I was in magic mode, when I was a magician, I could connect with anyone. I could entertain a room, command an audience, make friends instantly, all those wonderful things. But what started to happen in my personal life, my actual friends, my family, is I started to lose those relationships. Those relationships started to crumble and disappear. And it took years, embarrassingly long amount of time for me to realize what was happening. And what was happening is not uncommon for anybody who's been previously kind of a social outcast or bullied or a nerd or whatever like that, who suddenly finds popularity in some way. This is very common for young magicians, comedians, young actors, which is I swung from the total lack of self-confidence in an instant. It wasn't like a gradual thing. I was popular immediately. And so that goes to your head, because then all of a sudden all people all day are telling you how amazing you are. And so you think, yeah, I am amazing. I am amazing, which is fine. You should think you're amazing. But telling other people how amazing you are is not great, right? People don't love hearing about how great you are from you. And so, right, this is obvious now, but it's not when you're going through it, you know? And I think every person, anybody listening to this, has gone through something like this at some point in their life, where you got a little bit too into your own story. Maybe you thought you were awesome, or maybe you were having a really difficult time and you got so obsessed with how difficult of a time you're having that your friends don't want to be around you because they're tired of you talking about how difficult of a time you're having, right? When we get wrapped up in our own heads, we get this like perspective tunnel vision. And so I developed a massive ego, and it really destroyed my personal life, my relationships, even my family relationships for years. And so the wounds came back, and from the complete opposite reason.
Wow.
And so finally, as I was graduating college and realizing that after 4 years, having spent 4 years with all these amazing people and all these friendships I thought were going to last a lifetime, not one person I had spent 4 years with in college wanted to stay in touch with me when we graduated. Even the people I lived with, even my roommates, nobody. I was just gone. They were gone. And it was devastating. And I didn't even solve the problem then, because then you throw up the walls and you go, well, they're just, they're intimidated by my success already in business. They're right. Right. You know, it's just so easy to keep throwing walls up to protect ourselves until I finally cracked. Like there was nothing left at some point, and I just took a really deep look at what was going on. And I said, all right, I can't fix what happened in the past, but we can definitely be better in the future. And I went on a very intentional journey to become the person I was on stage for real. And that's what led me into where we are today, 10, 15 years later. Yeah.
I love that, to become the person I was on stage for real. I share that with you. And vice versa, to allow kind of the vulnerability of who you are in your quieter moments to be seen on the stage or in the public arena. So tell us what was the intentional journey, and what did you do? What did you do to become him, to become you?
Yeah, well, so it was really taking a look at what is it that I do so well on stage? What is it that, attracts people to me, that makes me a magnet when I'm in magic mode? And I realized that what magicians master without realizing it is what psychologists call perspective taking. This is a term in psychology, but essentially perspective taking is simply the ability to see the world from the point of view of another person. That's all it is. The ability to see the world from the point of view of another person. One of my favorite ways to phrase it is, it's the ability to say, I'm here, but I can see why you're there, right?
Ooh, I'm here,
And
but I can see why you're there.
yeah. And
Like
maybe there's something in between us that we can create that's extraordinary, where we can both leave uplifted, having been transformed for the better, right? Not in spite of those differences, but because of our difference in perspective. And that's what magicians do. Because think about it, magician, it is a fundamentally antagonistic relationship. No other art form is antagonistic like magic is. Magic is the living embodiment of I know something you don't know. It's a schoolyard taunt come to life. Nobody likes that, but somehow great magicians find a way to create an experience people enjoy, people actually pay tickets to come see, even though it's antagonistic. And so I realized, here's what we do as magicians, is to get through that antagonistic relationship, to create something wonderful, to create a shared experience. What we do is we have to consider what we're doing from the point of view of the audience. I have to know every night, wherever I am in the world, whatever your background, culture, religion, language, ideology is, whatever happened today, I need to take that into consideration. and I need to present what I'm doing with that in mind. I need to meet you where you're at as the audience, essentially. And that is how, so
Tough
I
gig.
give the example. Yeah, what is it?
Tough gig.
It is incredibly difficult because, and if you've ever tried to do a magic trick for a friend or something, you realize how difficult it is. The hard part is not the trick. Tricks are easy. Go to YouTube. There's a billion of them. Just go learn them. Tricks are really easy. Everyone has an Uncle Frank that does card tricks at Thanksgiving, right? Or runs around pulling coins out of kids' ears. That's not interesting to people. The puzzle isn't what's interesting about magic. Doing the puzzle is easy. Like fooling people is easy. Making people enjoy being fooled is hard, right?
That's the one. That's the one, isn't it? And you're right. We love to be entertained in that environment. We want to be fooled. We want to be able to be amazed in this illusion, this fantastical event, and we want to be shocked and surprised. That adrenaline that comes up, like, oh, how did that happen?
Yeah.
So carry on and tell us how you managed to do that.
Yeah, and so that's essentially what I did is I said, okay, what are the techniques that I use on stage to do this? And, for example, a lot of it is humor, which is, I give this example in the TEDx talk and in all of my presentations, but I did a trick for a long, long time on stage with a Rubik's Cube. And this was before the Rubik's Cube craze happened a couple of years ago and just kind of washed me out of that. Like, I've been doing this forever. But whatever, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not salty about it. So I was doing some magic
Rubik's Cube stuff out there at the moment, isn't
there? There is, and some very, very dear friends and colleagues of mine. But I was doing magic with a Rubik's Cube in like 2007, so well before the craze. So I was doing this for a long time, and I would have a Rubik's Cube all mixed up, and it could be mixed up, and I would just toss in the air, and it would land in my hand, and it would be solved when it came down, completely solved in midair by magic. Now the thing is, if I take out a Rubik's Cube, if I mix it up, and then without saying a word, if I toss in the air and it comes down solved, I guarantee you the audience is not going to like me. What they're going to think is, he's a jerk, right? Because the experience that you, the average non-magician, the audience member has with a Rubik's Cube is frustration, anger, disappointment. That's what almost everybody's experience with a Rubik's Cube is. And so if I don't address that at all, I'm not going to invite wonder. I'm going to invite anger. I'm going to invite antagonism. So what I do before that trick is I'll make a few jokes. I'll say, before I even get into the trick, I'll take the Rubik's Cube out and I go, I feel like everybody just got angry because I'm holding one. It immediately addresses their situation, and it subconsciously tells them, I understand how you're feeling when you see a Rubik's Cube. By naming it, by addressing it, we immediately relieve, I deflate the balloon, essentially. I take the power of that emotion away from you in a way that lets us have a real conversation. So I can, and then I'll make some other jokes. I'll say, oh, you can take the stickers off, rearrange them, put them back in the right order. You can break the pieces apart, put it back together. You can smash it with a hammer. It won't solve it, but you'll feel better after you do it. Like little silly things like that don't have to be monumentally funny, but they let the audience know, I understand your point of view. Let's share this experience together. And once I've done that, then I do the trick, and people feel the wonder of it. They share. We create that experience together because I've said to them, I understand you. I've made them feel understood. And so we can make a connection once that happens. And that's what I took off stage. That's what I took in my personal life. The ability to say to anybody, without using these words, I hear you, I see you, and I'm here for you. If you can make people feel like that, the opportunities in life, as I have found, open up in abundance in ways like I could never have imagined.
This is so powerful because this is the universal lesson of life, isn't it? I mean, just right there in that angry Rubik's Cube, it's like we all come into contact with people, places, events, things in our lives, emotions that we treat like that Rubik's Cube. We project our anger, our frustration. Like you said, you can smash it, you can do whatever you want with it, but it's still going to be there. You're still going to be angry. So once you start to kind of address it and actually bring the communication to it, bring the awareness to it, and actually speak about that situation, you create a shortening, don't you? You bring people into you, and like you said, then you can have that conversation. Now
Yeah.
we can now we can have that conversation with our differences, rather than in spite of our differences, rather than because of our differences. I don't know if I got that one right, but you did mention
Yeah,
something
it's the other way. Yeah, yeah,
like
and
that.
yeah, it's yeah. We can connect because of our differences,
Yeah.
not in spite of them, right? Yeah, no, but you're right on. Yeah.
I really, really love that. So you started to bring that into your personal life. So
Mm-hmm.
what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was transformational. I mean, I started to make friends that have lasted and will last a lifetime. I met a beautiful woman that I got along with famously, and instead of losing that relationship as I had over and over and over again, I held on to her, and she's now my wife, and we have a 6-month-old baby, and
Yay!
so I mean, and yeah, and for those who are thinking career focused, even though I was already a relatively successful kind of regional magician, it exploded my magic career as well, because I realized that even off stage in my conversations with clients, prospects, people who could hire me, suddenly they wanted to work with me, not just because I was good at card tricks, but because they enjoyed my company. They enjoyed how they felt in my presence. So it shot my career to national touring, and within a year of realizing all this. I mean, the change was not instant, but really close. When you commit to it for real, not as a tactic, because
Yeah.
anybody can use this stuff for evil. You see this stuff all over the place.
Mhm.
Like, con artists use this to manipulate your confidence in order to scam you later. But it's the same techniques. So you have to genuinely believe in this and commit to it as a life philosophy. And I did, and I meant it when I did it, because I had gone through so long a period of losing those relationships, and finally just went, I can't do. This takes admitting that it's my fault, as hard as that is to do, then that's what's got to happen. So it transformed everything about my life, personally and professionally.
So what's incredible is, as you're kind of talking, I'm feeling like what is powerful for me personally, but also for the audience, that we go from, like you said, this wounding of, I'm being bullied, I'm outcast, I've got no friends, to like this little mini explosion of popularity. And then that popularity goes to your head, and we create this new wound that is potentially opening up that kind of distance now in the family, in the friends that you were already close with, maybe your safety space.
Mm-hmm.
And then to lose them again because of almost the healing that you've done over on the
Mm-hmm.
other side, to kind of come into that center, it shows me that we are constantly moving through these kind of wounds, these new levels of consciousness awareness, and going deeper into the connection with ourselves so that we can connect deeper with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a, a part of what you teach, really. you know um Tell us what you do now, because what you do now is pretty magical, but not just magic.
Yeah. So I made the career transition into what could loosely be called thought leadership. And I'm going to throw the air quotes up as we do that, because I just hate the term so much, but we don't have a better one yet.
Yes. Yeah.
So essentially, somebody needs a better term than thought leadership. So, because when people say, "What do you do now?" I can't be like, "I'm a thought leader." So I lead thoughts. So what
We
I
need
did
to
is I
we
made the
need to get
trans.
on to our friend Simon and see if he can
Yeah,
come up with something better.
yeah, yeah, or just anybody smarter than me, really. So essentially, I took the career transition from being a full-time magician and an entertainer to being a speaker, a consultant, a facilitator, an author, on the topic of human connection. So if you go to my website or my LinkedIn, you'll see human connection specialist. That was the best I could come up with for what I do, because there was no such thing for what I do. This wasn't a category. I had to come up with a way to talk about it. So human connection specialist is what you would find on my business card now. But essentially what that means is I help organizations, I help educators, I help healthcare facilities, I even help individuals and communities build environments where everyone feels heard, understood, and valued. That is the work that I do now.
So give us a little. I kind of want people to know about how you went into your TED Talk, because I think that to me kind of shows how this work, this inner work, this commitment, as you say, to being authentic and to opening that connection sparked something literally like a fire that has kind of opened you up even further, like catapulted you.
Yeah, so when I got invited to give the TEDx talk, I got invited to a tiny local TEDx talk that was held at a high school and run by high school students. And it was run by high school students, from the tech to the organization, right? They had a teacher who was overseeing it, but this was run by high school students. It was emceed by them and produced by them. So which is wonderful, and they did an amazing job, but they're not professionals. They were 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds. So I wasn't expecting 2015.
Right.
And in that sense, I got very lucky. That was really the last wave of TEDx before they got a little overexposed, before the brand kind of got away from itself a little bit. You can still today, because I coach TED speakers all the time, you can still do a TEDx talk and crush it today, but you're not, the odds of it going viral, of catching fire today in a world where 1,000 new TEDx talks are uploaded daily, is probably not going to happen. So I did get lucky in the sense of I caught a wave right before it kind of closed that door. But I gave this talk, and because it was being held at a high school and run by students, I didn't expect anything of it. And this is this is actually the conversation that I had with my manager, who's been my manager since I was 20 years old. I said, Scott, if we nail this, if I give a talk and it gets like 5,000 views on YouTube, and this was the conversation, if it gets 5,000 views, I bet we could get a couple of local TV media appearances from it. That'd be pretty cool. I said, and if it gets like 10,000 views, we were like, I don't know, it's not gonna. But if it gets 10,000 views, we could probably increase our magic fees by like $500. That was the pipe dream. That was the pipe dream. To go from, doing magic shows for a couple $100 in people's backyard barbecues to maybe some more high-level kind of local corporate kind of work. That was what I was hoping to do. So when it got 3 million views, it was a really wild ride, to use a really stupid cliche. I mean, it was an emotional roller coaster. It was we watched The Bachelor recently. So it was really trippy. And so essentially the talk was called How to Magically Connect with Anyone. And I was talking about what we've been talking about here, the journey from, kind of the second wave. I didn't talk at all about my childhood in that. You only got 12 minutes or 15 minutes. So I talked about kind of the second wave. I told a story in there that I won't spoil. Just go watch it, because anything I talked about it would spoil it. But I told a story that really captivated people about an experience that had happened once in my early magic career that was kind of the catalyst for me. I really taught very basic perspective taking. I mean, because you get a minute when you're in the middle of a TEDx talk. I taught what it is and 2 quick tips for how you can start doing it better. I mean, really basic, like stuff that would be in the intro of a communications book. And I closed with an idea, my idea worth spreading, essentially, which was the talk was, as I said, how to magically connect with anyone. And the idea worth spreading was, to take on perspectives that are different from our own so that we live in a world where everyone feels understood. That was the idea. And between 2015 being in that before the door to TEDx kind of closed for viral stuff, between it being a year where the world was shifting on its own into being a little bit more divisive, a little bit
Yeah.
less friendly. That was kind of the start of that. And the thumbnail, honestly, it was a fedora wearing magician in a suit with a goatee. I mean, it was a goofy thumbnail. I didn't think so at the time. I thought I looked suave, but
So
it's kind of a
cool.
goofy thumb. So I just had everything working in my favor. And when it went viral, and like proper viral, 3 million views all over the world. At one point, it was in the top 1/1000% of all TEDx talks ever given. When that happened, I realized that this was a calling. This was something bigger than me. That I just happened to have collided with this. And I felt this deep responsibility that, well, the universe, I'm the one that collided with this out there in the universe, so now I need to take up the torch. It's got to be me, because I'm the one that ran into it. And so I decided to go out there and do my best to lead the human connection revolution, but more importantly, to inspire other people to lead the human connection revolution in their lives, in their schools, in their communities, in their organizations.
I mean, it's phenomenal, because when we met, we had a conversation that really I resonated with a lot, where you said, from that moment, didn't somebody invite you to do a corporate gig? That was a bit longer. They were like, just give us the same thing, but like 45 minutes.
Yeah, but 45 minutes. We just want the 15-minute thing you did, but 45. And they were offering an amount of money I'd never seen before. They were offering to fly me first class overseas to give a 45-minute talk. And an amount of money that would have taken me 2 months as a magician working constantly to make. And so we were like, yeah, sign the contract. And then we had the oh crap moment. It was like, oh, I have to do this now. And I remember thinking to myself, I only have 14 minutes and 11 seconds to say on this topic, because that's what the TEDx talk was. And I spent 3 months and 200 rehearsals to get to 14 minutes and 11 seconds. Because I wasn't an expert in human connection. It was just my story. It was just my story and an idea I believed in. So I'll be forever grateful for that gig, because it wasn't the money that they were offering that transformed my life. It was the timeline, the pressure to learn as much as I could learn, so I didn't look like a fool, so I didn't look like some idiot. When I got there, I wanted to deliver. I wanted to prove I was worth the money they had paid me. I wanted to make my management look good. I wanted to set myself up for the future. Lindsay and I were engaged at the time. I wanted to be able to afford nice things for us and move out of the apartment that we were living in with one room. And so I went nuts. I read every book and every article, watched every video, interviewed everyone I could talk to, just so I could write a 45-minute talk to expand upon what I'd already done. And that's what I did for the next year. Every time I got one of these high-priced speaking engagements, I'm like, oh, it's even more money. I gotta live up to that. I gotta live up to that. Oh, I'm keynoting their annual conference. They're trusting me to kick off the event they've planned for 18 months. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a PhD. I'm not a researcher. I got a math degree. I'm a magician. What am I doing here? And so what happens is, I've realized now in retrospect that the way people become experts, and I'm using that in quotes again because that's something people say about you, right? I don't view myself as an expert. That's something other people can decide. The way people become content area experts is really just by obsessing over the material more than anyone else could reasonably expect someone to do. And that's what I did, simply because I didn't want to look like an idiot. That was my only motivation. And after a year or two, I realized, oh, I am the, quote, expert that they keep introducing me as now. I really do. I can do stuff like this. I mean, this is many years later now, but I don't got notes. I know this stuff cold because I've spent years and years and years in this world. And now I wrote a book and I'm working on a second one. So yeah, it kicked off a deep dive into human connection that has become my complete obsession. Just the sociology, the psychology, the mental well-being aspect, how it affects corporate America, how it affects organizations throughout the world, work-life balance, young professionals, anywhere I can see human connection and getting better at it as a benefit, I'm there. Writing about it, reading about it, talking about it.
And I love this, because this is the reason. I mean, there were actually a few reasons, but the reason that I invited you to join us, because your story really is this wound to wisdom. You went so deep into the wisdom that it actually became, and I'm saying wealth, but it's opened your abundance, it's opened your prosperity, it's opened that connection to become brighter, bigger, more seen. And you're now podcasting, you're usually the one asking the questions, like you said, an author of a fantastic book. Tell us about this book.
I'm really proud of the book. I hope it continues to be relevant as the years go on. The book's called 3 New People, and the subtitle is Make the Most of Your Daily Interactions and Stop Missing Amazing Opportunities. And it's really, I wrote it as a manifesto on human connection. I kind of wrote it as a call to arms, honestly, because if you really do read the book and take the ideas and implement them, you have to change pretty much everything about how you go through the world. Because almost nobody, because we're not trained to do this, and it's not easy at all. It's very simple. There's nothing in the book that's complicated. It's very simple, but it's not easy. And what I mean by that is something as simple as active listening. It's a really simple concept. It's been talked to death for 100 years in communication books, right? It's not a novel idea. But if you've ever tried to do real active listening, in other words, listening to somebody simply and only to understand what they're saying, why they're saying it, how they're feeling about it, not to respond to it, not to formulate how you feel about it, not to offer anything in the conversation, just to understand it. It's unbelievably difficult to do. It's exhausting if you really try to do it. And like the technique of reflection, it's a communication technique where you reflect, where you paraphrase back to somebody what they've just said in your words from their point of view. Not with your opinion, not with your idea about it, not with how you feel about it at all, not with that anecdote about how something similar happened to you. All the things we do by instinct because we think this is what connects us with people. But if you simply paraphrase back to them what they just said in your words from their point of view, you can't do that if you're formulating your response to what they've just said, because then you're on you. You're on your side of the conversation. You can't do it. You have to stay on their side of the conversation. And this is what breeds true connection. I do not succeed at this in every conversation I have all day, every day. I'm not a wizard, right? I'm just as fallible and just as prone, right? I'm just as prone to making these mistakes as anybody. But in many ways, my friend Peter Gazzardi, he's this legendary book editor. He said to me once, actually it was on the podcast. He said to me once, the preacher always gives the sermon they need to hear. The author always writes the book they need to read. The best thing for me about being a human connection specialist is that I need to hear this stuff all the time, every day. I need to remember it. What better way to remember it all than to be the one with the megaphone?
Oh, I'm laughing because I see myself in you, and I shouldn't say that because I need to be active listening.
It's okay. We're doing a different thing here. This is, we are here for the audience. Like this is. It's funny because interviews are not normal conversations. As conversational as we're being, this is a different game that we're playing because we're here we're trying to create an experience for the audience as opposed for each other, which is a different game. Yeah.
It's interesting because I mean, as we are talking, I am thinking about the audience, and I'm inviting them to kind of make comments now about what it is that has really sparked in you while you're listening to Brian and kind of listening to this human connection, and what is it in your life that needs more connection, and how you can actually implement. You said the word implement. It's so easy to read the books, it's so easy to listen to the podcast, it's so easy to hear an interview like this and then kind of carry on about your day and be who you've always been. And yet we want to inspire people to shift, to open. And, my language is to open the heart. It's no
Mm.
different to human connection. For me, that's the way I feel. The heart is the space that opens. And you use the terminology, I finally cracked. After 4 years,
Mm.
nobody
Yeah.
wanted to stay in touch with me. I finally cracked. And for
Yeah.
me, that's the heart cracking open and saying, okay, let's have a look inside. What have I been up to? I've been me, 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 me the whole time. Now I want to be you. And as you kind of go to the you start to create this we. And that's the
Yeah.
connection. It's so beautiful that
Yeah.
magically it opens up opportunities. It's this paradox of it's no longer about me anymore. But
Yeah.
but paradoxically, when I put you first, I get everything and more that I always dreamed.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point that we should double down on here, because it would not be surprising to me if somebody hears this message and thinks, "Oh, I can never do anything for myself. I can never get anything for myself. I can never have my end of the conversation." I sometimes get that after a keynote or a workshop where somebody will say, but like, uh, uh, I never get to then have my part of the conversation. Now that's not the message. That's not the goal at all. The goal is to make every conversation, every experience, the best possible experience for all involved. And what all involved means is my conversational partner, me, and anyone else who will, by ripple effect, be affected by the conversation we're having now. This is an idea I got from my dear friend Zoe Chance, who's a professor at the Yale's School of Management. She teaches this in her influence classes, so she is an expert. So take her word for this, not me.
I heard
That
Steph and Zoe too.
Yeah, yeah, isn't that great? Isn't that great? Yeah, everyone in my world seems to know each other. It's wonderful. So Zoe, one of the things that she teaches is that people who want to do good in the world often feel like they have to be like these martyrs that can't get anything good for themselves. People who work in serving industries, like therapists and teachers, especially elementary teachers, and this is a problem that affects many more women than men, for other sexist societal reasons that need to be dealt with. But this idea that I have to like live in poverty in order to do good for the world. I can never get anything for myself or be happy. The only way to do good in the world is not to be happy myself. That is not the case at all. And that's what Zoe teaches. And that's become infused in a lot of my work as well, which is, if you're going to connect with somebody, obviously it can't be only about them either. People don't want that either. That's not the best possible outcome. The best possible outcome is we inspire each other. The best possible outcome is we bring each other up. But most people don't know how to do this, and so you lead the way. You be the one that makes them feel heard, understood, and valued, which will inspire them to do the same for you and for them to do the same for other people in their lives, and we all rise together. That's the goal.
That is the goal. I love that. And that is so beautiful, because as you're saying that, I'm like, yes, that is the thought leader. That is the heart open leader. That is the leader, full stop. The leader goes first. And we can try and find new words to describe this, but ultimately, whether it's overused or not, it is the word that describes it. A leader goes first, regardless of whatever it is that you are leading. And so I love that. I love that for our audience too, that, the premise here is, if you want to grow, if you want to become more prosperous, more abundant, happier, healthier, wealthier, it isn't all about you. It's about this active listening. It's this human connection. It's the heart open. It's thinking of the other person first, but also that interaction. And I'd love you to kind of sum up for us, if there was one thing that you would gift to our audience that they can take away, either a practical tool or a thought that can help them today and in their life, what would it be to help them create that human connection?
Every interaction is meaningful, and every person you meet is important.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Every interaction is meaningful, and every person you meet is important. Beautiful.
That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So where do people find you? Because I know there's going to be a lot of people inspired. I can't stop smiling. I love our connection.
Yeah, so I'll give you, depending on who you are, who's watching this, I'll give you two different ways to connect with me. If you're really into human connection and this idea, and you want to follow that journey and go down that pathway, humanconnection.blog. Humanconnection.blog. That's my weekly blog, and you do the thing, toss your email in, you know the drill. You get all the resources, you get the ebooks, you get the stuff. And you also get the weekly newsletter from me with the weekly blog, stories, insights. If you enjoy the way that I tell stories, you'll love it. If you have not enjoyed the way I tell stories, please do not sign up for this blog. It will be so much worse in text. So you'll get all this stuff, plus my weekly news. That newsletter also has a segment in there that's exclusive to the newsletter that is never posted anywhere else on social media. And on the other side, if you're the kind of person who wants to go on in your business, in your industry, and become the thought leader, the go-to expert, I coach TEDx speakers, aspiring TEDx speakers, and that program is called Conquer the Red Dot. You can go to conquerthereddot.com, and we're in session right now, but you can toss your email in for all the free stuff, all the resources, and get on the waiting list for next time if you're interested. So those are the two places.
Conquer the red dot, and you have conquered the red dot, and you continue to help other people through your own wisdom to create their wisdom too. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing little Milo growing on our screens and
Me too.
Legs.
not too fast though. It's going 6 months. It's going too fast. It's too fast. Tell him to slow down. We need an actual wizard who can slow things down. But yes, thank you so much. This is such a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Such a great conversation. Thank you, and have a great day.